Welcome, wonderful human beings, to our first episode of Her Assumed Reality Hub. This is Esme, along with,
Andrea.
on our first episode, we're going to be talking about how we got into all of this, the law of assumption, and all of the source creators. Um, I don't want to say source creators, source material, right?
Yeah.
Um, so just getting into this already, how did you get into manifesting, Andrea?
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of people, when I was pretty young. I was like 16 or 17 in high school. I watched The Secret. It was on Netflix. I don't even remember what led me. I know I think I was watching a YouTube video. I was very into like yoga and spirituality. So I was watching a YouTube video and they're like, watch The Secret. Like it's gonna teach you how to manifest and do all these things. So I watched it on Netflix and I kind of liked it, but it also, I think like law of attraction, like that type of vibe didn't really fully resonate with me. So I remember I watched that and I wanted to learn more about it, and study it a little bit more. And so I went to Barnes and Noble and they had a whole section that was like manifesting books, like The Secret was in there and there was some other ones I can't remember the names of. But Neville Goddard like stood out to me. It was the Power of Awareness, and it was like the one that's like yellow with like a red eye in the middle with all these like beams coming out of it. And I literally just thought it looked cool. I think I might have like read the back of it and been like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go home with this. So I read it and I don't know if I fully grasped the concepts at all just because of the age that I was at the time of reading it. Um, but I started manifesting little things, like I would manifest like finding $5 on the floor at my work. Um, like little like successes happening, like getting a raise. I think I got a promotion at the time. I guess I didn't understand the part that I didn't understand was like the concept of like you are creating everything all the time and this is always happening in your life. I thought it was almost like this like fun little game I could play with life every once in a while. And so I enjoyed that. And then I think I hit a pretty low point in my life about like 4 or 5 years ago. That's kind of what led me to to rediscovering the law. I was like scrolling on TikTok and someone had mentioned Neville Goddard, and I was like, oh yeah, it's like that book that I read. And from there, I reread the book and fell back into the Reddit page and kind of, I guess, re-began my journey with the law. And now it's really become just the way that I live life and my own belief system and how I kind of see the world.
Nice. I didn't know you learned about the law, or I guess manifesting since you were 16. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know. It's a cool story to me because I think a lot of people, I think more recently, I think just with like TikTok and everyone being home during the pandemic, I think a lot of people found the law very recently. And I don't know, I'm kind of fortunate, I think, that I found it in my teen years, even if I kind of forgot about it after a while. Like it was always something I thought about, and I've always been to like the spiritual community and that kind of stuff. So it's been like in and out of my life, but I'd say more recently is when I really was like, okay, this is like how I see the world and how I live my life from now on. But how did you get into the law?
Okay, for me, I've known about, being able to manifest things since I was a very small girl, just because of my family, but they believed it in their own way. I want to say, like, like brujeria. Um, like my own grandpa, he would always say, like, if I want something, I'll, just have it in my mind, have it in my head. And also, he always said that, God was within him. And if he wanted to talk to God, he could talk to a rock because God was in everything. And so I also grew up, like, believing all of that too, And I would, obviously, like, know that if you, like, casted, like, almost like a spell,
Hmm.
it would also, like, if you believed it, it would work.
Yeah.
And later on, obviously, I was like, okay, but this is why it works, because it was the people, like, that did that, I don't say spell in quotation marks. It was their belief, right?
Hmm.
And just growing up like that, but also kind of being into spirituality. But the law of assumption, specifically Neville Goddard, I found about 3.5 years ago. And it was when I hit a really low point in my life, like rock bottom, I want to say.
Hmm.
I was just noticing like patterns in my life, in regards to pretty much everything, like all relationships in my life, and wealth as well. But more specifically, like more like in my romantic life, right? And not just that, like it was deeper than that. It was just noticing patterns that weren't good for me, and me believing that I wasn't like good enough for pretty much anything. Um, and I knew that I needed to get out of that. I wanted to get out of that. Like I felt bad. I was in a very victim mindset. Um, but you know, knowing the law now, like I'm in a pretty good spot in my life. So that's when I found it, 3.5 years ago because of that.
Yeah. No, I think that's what leads a lot of people to law is just I don't want to say everyone, but I think a lot of people do hit that rock bottom in their life where they start kind of seeking answers of like, I think you get to a point where you notice patterns and you're kind of tired of being a victim and you're like, how could I change this? Because you see people around you living life in a different way. And I think that's what leads a lot of people to the law is unfortunately getting to that rock bottom point where they're like, I can't keep doing this shit to myself?
Right? It feels bad. It doesn't feel very good to be in a spot like that internally.
Yeah. No, and eventually you got to get sick of your own shit. But what do you think is like the best thing or like the biggest thing that you've manifested in your own life?
Okay, I'm gonna get real deep with you here, Andrea.
Okay.
you know, um, I've had quite a few things that are considered, I want to say, quote, big. I don't want to put
Mhm.
a label on that because, some people are always like, something small, manifest something small, like a cup of coffee. And they don't put so much pressure on those small manifestations, right? I'm sure you've also, like, experienced that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, they tell you that it's small, but yet they tell you that, something like a car is like a bigger manifestation, right? So they imply that it's harder to get it when essentially nothing should be hard to get.
Yeah.
Or, and I'm also like, hopefully later we do get into, you know, it's not it's not even about getting anything. It's about being,
Mhm.
right? But my biggest manifestation, materialistic. I do want to say it was an apartment. Um, like I visualized that being the exact apartment that I visualized just came into my own reality here in this 3D world that we call it. So that was one of my biggest, along with love. I did break out of a pattern as well, and it was even with a person that I really wanted to be with, and it happened. Right, that was a big manifestation for me. But the biggest one of all was just finding that inner peace and inner love. You know, it was just manifesting the law or being conscious of me being the creator of my own reality and having that peace, knowing that I'm able to create all of that within me, and that it's just this world out here, the 3D is just a byproduct of everything that I'm containing within myself and creating
Mhm.
within myself. What's your biggest manifestation?
I want to say my biggest one is honestly like my business. So in what I do for a living, it's kind of I guess like taboo or like really people do not start their own businesses right out of school. There's almost like this hierarchy that you're expected to go through. Like in some states even like you're literally not allowed to with your license. Luckily in the state that I live in we are. Um but it wasn't even really my like full intention going into it. I always knew when I was going into school that I wanted to have my own business. Um but honestly like I paid attention to like the hierarchy that was and I was like, yeah, probably in like 5 years I'll be able to start my own business, like whatever. Um and I had ended up getting a job at this one place right before I was about to graduate in my field. It was maybe like a month or two before. But when I was driving home every single day, I would just playfully pretend, kind of like what Seth talks about in Seth Speaks. So I would like playfully pretend and kind of imagine like, oh, what would it be like if, I own my own business and I was like driving home from my business, and what would I be doing all day? And I would sort of just fantasize about it, and I would really feel in that state, but I really didn't think much of it. And I didn't know about manifestation at this time. This is about 3 years ago. Um, but I just continued doing that, and what kind of followed after was insane. So basically, the clinic that I had gotten a job at, they just like randomly shut down. And I was pretty upset about it because I was excited to work there. And so I had gone back into school the next day, and this girl that I was in school with, she asked me like, "Oh, are you excited to start your new job?" And I told her, I was like, "Oh, they actually like shut down. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, it's gone." And I wasn't freaking out about it or anything because I knew I would find another job, and I really didn't. I was very indifferent to like everything that was going on, to be honest. I was like, "Yeah, they shut down." I was like, "I don't know what I'm gonna do." And I told her, actually, I remember telling her, I kind of want to start my own business. I was like, now that I was looking at all the other jobs, and I didn't feel like satisfied with any of them. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of want to start my own business, and I was looking into if I can do that right after graduating, but it seems like a lot to do by myself. And I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, "Oh, this guy that we go to school with, he's wanting to start his own business and is looking for someone to start it with. Like, you should go talk to him." Um, so me and him met at Starbucks. We made our business name, made our little slogan, and here we are, like 3 years later, with a very successful business. We're bringing in more money than ever this year, and so that kind of just like fell into my lap. It was really cool to see. I've also manifested, like very consciously, my way out of certain court situations that were pretty scary in my life. I don't want to share too many of the details on, but um, like with that, I would do sats every single night because it was like terrifying to me, and exactly what I imagined in my sats scene happened. It was like, oh my, it was mind blowing. So that's another one that I think is really cool. Um, and also, like I said earlier, I think my that connection with your, I think I like the word God self, but or not God self, higher self. But I think I guess in Neville terms, it's like that piece of you that is God, that piece of you that kind of creates outside of like this outer man. So
Nice. That's amazing.
yeah,
Honestly, the law is amazing.
no, it really is. I think it's it really a beautiful thing to discover, and I'm thankful that it's something that came into my life, and that I think not everyone gets to like discover the law in their life here on Earth necessarily, and so I'm thankful that in this lifetime I got to discover it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm really thankful for knowing all of this, you know. Um I heard you mentioning the Reddit and
Yeah.
obviously, the subreddit on for Neville Goddard. How do you feel about that? Because I have my own opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great posts on the Reddit page. But honestly, I think if I wouldn't have like discovered it when I did, I feel like I would have been a lot further along with my knowledge of the law, because I think everyone gets to this point when they're learning about, not everyone, but some people get to this point when they're learning about the law of assumption, that they're kind of like in this like thirst for knowledge and like searching for the key or searching for an answer that'll make everything seem easy for them rather than applying. And that's really something that I fell into. And so I would just be on there scrolling and scrolling and looking for success stories and looking for, insights from people that would just make me like have faith in the law almost. And all you really need to do is just have faith. You have to you have to decide that you have faith in the law, and have decide that you have faith in what you're creating. Rather than like searching for it outside of yourself, because you're going to continue to create that. And I think Reddit pages and like these YouTube coaches, and there's some really amazing YouTube coaches. And I think, they have some really great insights, and, who knows, maybe one day one of those YouTube coaches is going to be someone that in, 50 years they talk about the way we talk about Neville now. Um, but ultimately, I think you should go to source teachers and just kind of stick to that and try to apply that for yourself before you start seeking more. Like, take in what you're learning about and actually apply it and do that in your life, and don't just keep seeking and seeking, because I think that leads you down a never-ending path of doing that until you decide to stop. But what are your thoughts on the Reddit page?
Right now, I mean, I totally agree with you on everything you said right now, but there are some gems, obviously, but there are also a lot of limiting beliefs. You know, if you go onto the subreddit and you haven't read any source material and you're just basing your knowledge on YouTubers or on the actual subreddit yourself, there's a lot of people that will talk about sats or affirming or, any technique. They'll tell you
Mhm.
the love letter method or, whatever technique. And it may work for them, but it's also like it'll imply like a limiting belief in your own mind, and you're gonna be like, oh, if I affirm, then I'm gonna get my desire, you know, and that's not true. Like that's not true at all. Techniques are there to help you to get into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, because when you manifest, it's already done. You have it within you. It's done in your mind, and what's in your mind is going to reflect in 3D,
Mhm.
right? And in the subreddit, you can get lost in that rabbit hole of thinking that certain techniques are going to get you the manifestation. And I also agree that you should read source material and get your information from there. It's actually like it makes you feel at peace and it's
Mhm.
comforting to me to read the books.
No, I agree. Anytime I've like had a day where I'm like struggling or having like old thoughts pop in, like honestly, like I'll try to watch, sometimes I'll like fall into that like, let me watch this like YouTube video that's made me feel good in the past, but anytime I've just picked up like Seth Speaks or a Neville book and just read that, even if it's just like 2 or 3 pages, it has immediately put me at peace and reminded me of like my own power and who I am and why I'm here. Um, so yeah, I think it's really helpful. Do you feel like there's any like techniques that you fell into when you first discovered the law that you like regret or realize were wasted time?
Yeah, scripting. I, I have notebooks filled with scripting of things that never like
I hope no one
happen.
ever finds my scripting journals, man.
Right? And like I kind of sound like a crazy person. Kind of sounds a little delusional, but
Yeah.
to me, scripting doesn't work. And maybe it works for someone else. I don't want to say like don't script. It could totally work for you, but it's when you script, if it gets you into that feeling, then do it. By all means do it. Or
Mhm.
let's say that you are gonna go play tennis, and if playing tennis gets you into the wish fulfilled of you being wealthy because you think you're playing like whatever you playing with like the big dogs, then do it.
No, I agree. Scripting for me also. And I never resonated with scripting though. I think one time I did. It's like I've tried a lot of techniques, and I think because you have that initial faith of like this is going to work for me, they have worked, but then it's like I continued to chase that rather than realizing that I created that. So like I've had scripting work before, but I've also sat there and scripted and been like, why isn't this working? It like worked that one time or done I think I've told you I've done some crazy meditations that have worked. Sometimes they've worked, but other times it's just like you're chasing this like external thing to do the work for you rather than realizing like, hey, I used this technique and it helped me get to this state and that's why that happened, not this technique makes this happen. And so but yeah, anything works, different strokes for different folks, but yeah, like like writing your intentions down in water and drinking it, and there's some crazy things out there. I think it's important to know though, it all comes from you. You decide if that technique works really.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like like making vision boards. I do them because they're fun. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
lie. But I do know that whatever it is that I'm putting on there is like, okay, well, I'm gonna fulfill within, like, fulfill myself within, and then I'm gonna, you know, see that reflection out here. So it's all fun. I think manifesting is fun. And I know that some people make it harder on themselves because they think that it has to be based on the technique, like you said, and they're relying on the technique and not on themselves. So
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think you can just kind of easily fall into that with these different coaches because I think a lot of coaches especially will like preach like, oh, if you do this technique it's going to work, or if you say these 4 words you'll win $1 million by tonight. Things like that that I'm like, you're having people chase this like thing outside of them that they think creates for them. Um and yeah, that's why I always think, like we said, it's good to stick to source teachers. Is there like a specific lecture or book that you feel like is good for people to kind of start out with when they're discovering the law?
Yes, actually, one of my favorite lectures from Neville Goddard
Mm-hmm.
is No One to Change But Self. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Um, and it's my favorite because, it tells you over and over again in that lecture, there's nobody else to change but yourself. Change yourself within, and that's what's going to be manifested.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is yours?
I really love, gosh, what's it called? Feeling is the secret. I really just feel like I feel like it's a perfect introduction for the law. I usually, if I have friends that I'm trying to get into the law, I'll give them the power of awareness. But now that I've kind of reread Feeling is a Secret for myself, I think it's like the perfect little guide for manifesting. It's like kind of gives you this intro chapter of like, hey, here's the law, here's where it's outlined, like in various religions and historically, like this is like as above, so below, different things within the Bible, that show us like this is essentially our human nature and this is why we're here on earth. And then it kind of just dives into like a couple techniques that you can use and how to apply that knowledge to your life. I just think that book's a really great, like almost like a little guide that you can use for the law. And it's really short and it's very few pages. And so I feel like it's something easy to return to. I feel like sometimes when you're learning the law, like I'll reread or re-listen to things that are helpful for me. And so when it's short and has things really clearly outlined, I think that makes it more simple for people.
Yeah, it's a pretty great book. I agree with you on that. It has a few techniques and it has that famous SATs, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if that's where it originated with Neville, but he really outlines like how to do sats. And I mean, I know they say techniques of manifesting, we just talked about this, but if you read like any of the Neville success stories, I don't remember what the I have his like big kind of reader, and there's one of the books in there. I don't memorize all the titles
The
because
Law
I
and
just
the
haven't.
Promise.
Yeah, is that the one that has like all of the
Yes.
like success stories?
Yes, yeah.
Every single one of them use sats. And so I'm not saying that like that's like this is the key that you need to manifest, but I do think there is some truth behind like getting into that subconscious mind through that kind of theta or like sleepy state. Um, but you can also access that through different ways. I just think for me personally, Sats has been very effective, and that's one thing I've noticed is that like in Neville times, at least in his books, um, every single story I read was about pretty much using Sats.
Right. And I want to touch a little bit on SATs too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people stress out about SATs and, they're like, well, I have to have a specific scene and I have to, I can't fall asleep as I'm doing them or, they do a lot of like, um, I don't say like excuses or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
they just emphasize on not doing it correctly, right?
Yeah.
But SATs is, I don't really say it's a technique, it's a state akin to sleep. It's the state that you go to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
And in Awaken Imagination, which is one of the books in the Complete Reader for Neville,
Yeah.
when Neville first started, Abdullah, which was his teacher, told him to go to sleep in the state of being in Barbados, right? And that's one of like the
Yeah.
famous like you're already in Barbados because Neville wanted to go to Barbados and that was one of his desires, but Abdullah was like you are already in Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to sleep feeling as if you're already in Barbados, thinking from Barbados, right? And he would go to sleep in that state. But he would
Yeah.
do stats, right? And doing a visualization. But in some of his other books, he does tell people you don't have to visualize anything. You can affirm, like, isn't it wonderful? Or thank you, or, you know, certain phrases or whatever we can call those like, affirmations. But
Mhm.
essentially it's just your state. So if I fall asleep in the state of love, you know, that'll be reflected. State of wealth or a state of being healthy, it's going to be reflected, and you can fall asleep in that state, right? And using whatever technique that you want.
Yeah. No, I agree. And maybe I think visualizing was sort of I guess Neville's way of getting there, but I have fallen into that where I'm like, oh, I have to do like sats perfectly, and you try to lie there on your back, and that just never, unless it was like an extremely like stressful situation where I was like, I can't sleep anyway, so I'm just gonna do this. Really, you can just, like you said, just kind of fall asleep within that state, and how you get there really doesn't matter.
Right. I was also stressing myself out with getting the perfect scene and and all of that kind of stuff when I first started as well. And yeah, it truly doesn't matter. No technique matters. It's the state that you're in.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missed a lot with people not going straight to source teachers and kind of relying on YouTube or Reddit to get their knowledge is it really misses that goal of the state that you need to be in. Like I said, there's a lot of really great YouTubers. Like Edward Art Supply Hands, I think is someone who really teaches that. I don't remember that other guy's name. I would keep forgetting it. But there's like three YouTubers that I'd say I'm like, these guys know what they're talking about. They obviously read source material and they're not preaching techniques or just like giving you a magic phrase to say that's going to make everything come true. But really, I think you'll get a lot more baseline knowledge if you go to source and truly learn it that way.
Right. And that's what we are going to be doing here
Yeah.
is going to be reading some of the books, some of the chapters and the lectures. There's really like there's a lot of golden nuggets. I think everything is, but if you really listen and pay attention to what it is that's in the books and in the lectures, it tells you right there, and you don't have to like stress out about techniques or anything. It's fun, and you'll be at peace.
Yeah. No, exactly. I don't know. I think that's just an easier way to go about it. And yeah, like you said, we're going to be sharing a lot of that here. So, I already read it like preemptively for this, but I read Feeling is the Secret and I'll have that recording uploaded. And I know we each plan on, recording podcasts every now and then, uploading lectures or reading books, and kind of giving our own insight on that. Like after I read The Feeling is a Secret, I kind of gave my own feedback and things that stand out to me from that book. And so yeah, we just hope to like share that here on this channel and talk about the law because I don't know, it's fun to talk about. And I think I'm glad that I have a friend that I can talk to about it with because it's really interesting.
Yeah, me too. I'm really glad I met you and that my journey led me to a friend like you.
I know, it's so cool. I'm like, I love it. I think I manifested you because I remember being like, I want a friend who like knows the law and studies Neville and like wants to like talk about this and we can be like buddies with it together. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And now we manifested the podcast as well. Isn't
Yes.
isn't it wonderful? So
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. Do you want to maybe share your favorite Neville quote or a Neville quote that's standing out to you right now before we end for today?
yeah, of course. Let me go ahead and tell you guys one of the quotes that I really like right now at this moment. Um, it's health, wealth, beauty, and genius are not created. They are only manifested by the arrangement of your mind, that is, by your concept of yourself. And your concept of yourself is all that you accept and consent to as true.
Yeah. No, that's a really great quote. My favorite quote, it's just always going to be my favorite. The world is a mirror forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself. That's from Neville. Um, but yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed. We're going to be, like we said, uploading lectures, book readings, podcasts here. So yeah, if you have any like feedback on what we said or want us to read anything in particular or talk about a particular subject, you guys can comment that down below. And yeah, thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.